Welcome to the Midnight Gathering with Nancy Nightmare
And the Wizard.
Join us where the bizarre,
The mysterious and the macabre meet.
And welcome to episode 3 of Creepy Christmas Month.
Welcome, everyone.
Really getting ready for Nosferatu over here.
Absolutely. Hello, Nancy Nightmare.
Well, hello, Wizard. How are you doing this week?
Pretty amazing. Look at that shirt.
Yeah, well,
We
if
should
you're
do a
listening,
close-up
you won't
on
be
it.
able to see it. But you're always asking for close-ups like I'm a tech whiz. I'm not a tech whiz, but I'll give it a shot. It's They Live is the t-shirt. And I thought it was appropriate because, you know, there's a lot going on in the world right now.
What is going on in the world right now, Nancy Nightmare?
You know, we've got Project Bluebeam firing up. I'm just kidding.
Are we talking about the lights that have been
That's
showing
right.
up all over the Northeast?
That's right. We've had drone sightings. They call them drones. They are unidentified and they are flying and they appear to be objects.
Now, who can it be? E.T.? Is it aliens?
Is it our own government?
It's pretty spooky.
Is it Gremlins?
Gremlins.
Which brings us to what we're going to be talking about this week.
Yep.
It's a very exciting week because we are going to be talking about Gremlins from 1984.
1984 again.
The movie that made us all fear tiny, mischievous creatures hiding in our homes during the holidays. But did you know that gremlins are not just a Hollywood invention? Oh no. They're rooted in real folklore with origins that go back to World War II and even further. So grab your Mogwai, just don't feed it after midnight, and join us as we explore the world of gremlins and the eerie real-life lore that inspired them.
Directed by Joe Dante and produced by Steven Spielberg, Gremlins is a story of Billy Peltzer, an ordinary young man whose life takes a chaotic turn when his inventor father brings home an unusual gift, a Mogwai named Gizmo. Gizmo's cute, cuddly, and full of charm, but he comes with 3 very important rules. Number 1, don't expose him to bright light, especially sunlight, because,
It will kill the little guy
don't get him wet.
because he will propagate.
And never, ever feed him after.
Midnight. We don't know which time zone.
No.
There are a lot of loose ends in this movie. We don't know which time zone or at what time you can start feeding him because technically everything is after midnight.
Yep. Yeah.
So there were not a lot of clear instructions included with this Mogwai.
I was 1983.
When it was filmed, it was 84 when it was released,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So they didn't have instructions in 84. Is that what you're saying?
I think it was just simpler.
Well, I also I'm going to surprise you with a few things I came up with. So
Do tell.
as I was watching it, I came up with a few alternate movie titles for this.
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay, now these are just working titles. So remember, number 1, Gremlin Genocide. Right? Because this is kind of a gremlin genocide.
That's
Only one human dies in this whole movie.
Yep.
But the gremlin deaths are through the roof.
Yep.
And just because they were different. Okay, number 2. Why Billy shouldn't own pets. Right? He is not a very good Mogwai owner. And I would argue he endangered Barney's life as well.
Yeah, and everybody in Kingston Falls.
Yeah, he almost killed the whole town. But aside from that, he's just not a very good pet owner. There were instances of injuries to Gizmo. Let's talk about the controversial things in this movie because there's
Well,
a
in
lot
some
of
ways, I think if he had fatally injured Gizmo, we wouldn't have a story.
Well, I'm surprised he didn't. I'm surprised Gizmo was still breathing by the end of this movie because Billy was so irresponsible with him. First,
Yeah.
Mom with the camera flash,
Yep.
right? So that's the first. They said no bright lights, and here she goes. Well, I guess the father didn't tell her yet, so we won't blame Mom.
Okay.
Reflection of light in a mirror and the cut that resulted from it in Billy's room.
I mean, that one is kind of debatable as well, right? Because he might have not known. Like, most people don't realize that mirrors reflect light.
Well, is he an
Unless if you're a
idiot?
cat owner.
Yeah, that's true. And then he bandages the little guy within minutes of getting him,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Okay, well, insult to injury. When he brings the little guy into the bathroom to bandage him, bright light again. Billy. And then we have the gratuitous child scene. I have no idea why Pete, aka Corey Feldman, was even in this movie, frankly, if not for Spielberg to just want children to relate to the film.
Yep.
But here comes Pete knocking water over and getting Gizmo wet.
To be fair, Pete hadn't been told about the 3 rules yet.
Well, even so, be careful with the little guy.
So Gizmo was a work in progress for Billy. It was like a starter pet.
Don't worry, I have other alternate movie titles. Gremlin Apocalypse, Stripes Revenge.
That one I like.
I wish we got a Gremlins Apocalypse. Okay. And my favorite one, Mrs. Deagle Must Die.
AKA the Wicked Witch of the East? Is that who she was?
Yeah, she was. It was a lot like Wizard of Oz.
Yep.
Even Billy, he had a line at one point that was the exact line that Dorothy said in The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, nice little Easter egg there.
Yeah, it was oh, he didn't mean to hurt you or something like that. The way that he said it was exactly how Dorothy Gable said it in the film.
You know, I didn't catch that. That's pretty rad.
Well, I've watched The Wizard of Oz a lot, which you might not know because my memory is so bad that I can't actually remember anything about it right now. But yeah, so those are some surprise alternate titles for you. Now that I've thrown us off course.
No, that's okay.
But, you know, there were a lot of Gremlin injuries, Mogwai injuries. I'm surprised Pete will let any of this fly, frankly. You know, when Billy accidentally breaks the rules, chaos ensues. Gizmo spawns mischievous offspring who transform into grotesque, dangerous gremlins. I shouldn't have used that language in this. That is very offensive. Just because they're different. After their midnight snack, the once peaceful town of Kingston Falls is soon overrun with these adorable creatures who wreak havoc in increasingly absurd and terrifying ways, from sabotaging machinery to singing carols in a twisted parody of Christmas cheer. Again with the caroling, though.
Yeah.
The Gremlins turn the holiday season into a nightmare. A Nancy nightmare.
I also want to point out that there's a lot of similarities between this film and It's a Wonderful Life as well.
Yeah, there are. That's a very long film, though, and I haven't watched it in years.
Yeah. I haven't watched it. I've only seen like pieces of it here and there. I don't know.
I don't think it's my type of Christmas cheer.
Yeah. But this film, there were a lot of parallels between the 2 movies. I think the name of the town in It's a Wonderful Life is Bellow Falls. And then this is Kingston Falls.
Oh, interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah. Joe Dante, too, worked with the director, Edward Arnold, who there's a photo on his wall at Miss Deagle's place. And apparently that was the photograph of her late husband. And that was the director of It's a Wonderful Life.
Seriously, I didn't know that. I did notice that photo.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, because he's like very creepy. I think, too, the town is terrorized by a very wealthy real estate person as well.
Yes, I do remember that, right.
Yeah. So Gremlins at its core is a dark comedic cautionary tale about responsibility and what happens when we underestimate the consequences of our actions. With its blend of horror, humor, and holiday charm, the film became an instant classic and remains a must-watch every Christmas season. I agree with that.
It is very clearly a Christmas film, which is another thing that annoys me that it was released originally in June.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, it starts with, I believe it's Darlene Love, Christmas, Baby, Please Come Home.
Yep.
After the Chinatown scene, it opens with this glorious Christmas scene where you see the Christmas tree sales and this Christmas music. It's very clearly a Christmas film.
Yeah. About the cautionary tale, right from the get-go, when they're in Chinatown and Mr. Peltzer goes into the shop, there's a dragon on the countertop. And then he makes like that terrible like dragon breath joke.
Oh my God. There was so much looking back on this film. There's so much where you just like roll your eyes.
Yeah. But what's interesting is that dragons in the Old Testament were thought, I think there's like a reference to Leviathan. So he's evil, he's chaotic, and it's almost like the metaphor for the film.
Interesting.
If you look at the Gremlins.
I don't remember, first of all, not to again sidetrack us, I don't remember dragons in the Old Testament. Were there dragons in the Old Testament?
Yep.
How fun.
Yep. I
did
think
not
it
realize
was, I made a note of it. I think it was like Psalm.
Saw?
Saw.
Well, it's okay.
It was in Psalms, but if you look at the gremlins, like they're green, they're scaly, they look kind of dragon-like as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting parallel.
Oh, but in Chinese culture, dragons are good luck. But I think in this case, they're referencing the Old Testament God.
Wow. You're wicked smart.
There's the occult tidbit there.
It's impressive.
I don't know. It just dawned on me, and then the bad joke. I was like, well, clearly, like, obviously, like they're making that reference. But then when I was like, well, what do dragons represent? And I was like, oh, in Chinese mythology, it's thought of as good luck. But I think because of the nature of the film.
Okay.
Yeah.
More about the real lore of Gremlins.
Yes. Yeah.
While Gremlins gave us a modern, humorous take on these creatures, the real lore of Gremlins is much darker and rooted in aviation history. The term gremlin originated with British pilots during World War II, who blamed unexplained mechanical failures on mischievous, unseen creatures. Pilots reported hearing strange noises, seeing tools move on their own, or witnessing engines mysteriously fail mid-flight, all attributed to gremlins.
Yeah.
They do mention this in the film. Mr. Futterman, in his drunken stupor as he stumbles out of the town bar, is going on about gremlins. Now, granted, Mr. Futterman is pretty xenophobic.
Yep.
But I guess he was in World War II.
Yeah.
Which I was actually trying to do the math, and I was like, oh, I guess he would have been that old, because if he was like in his 50s then, he would have been in his 20s and the 40s. Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That was a lot of numbers, and I confused myself. But he mentioned gremlins taking down his airplane in World War II.
Yeah. And also at the time, there was a lot of unemployment due to factories being shipped overseas. So in Gremlins, Kate's telling Billy that, a lot of people in the town, plus Mr. Futterman, had lost their jobs.
So this is why he's a raging racist, is what you're saying.
Well, I think it's one of the reasons that.
Right.
But also during World War II, they were also considered like possible reasons for malfunctions in their systems due to high stress, and then obviously,
right,
superstition.
What I did find interesting is they were kind of conflating the cultures, because they were talking about the Gremlins in World War II, and obviously Japan was involved in World War II.
Yep.
But the Mogwai came from a Chinese store in Chinatown.
Yeah.
But I guess we didn't get too deep in the details in 1984.
Well, there's a photo of Nixon on the wall, like when the Gremlins are attacking him with his snowplow. You'll notice it like right by the door.
I did notice that.
And Nixon was responsible for helping us open up with China to do business in China. So
very interesting.
Yep.
My grandparents actually went to China when that happened.
Yep.
They were some of the first travelers there.
Yeah. So I think it was already like a fear in some Americans that this competition will make things very difficult for us in terms of like the average worker and such,
Who knew there were such important themes in Gremlins?
There's a lot of 50s themes too throughout the film as well. Like the fear of nuclear war, because there's a scene where Stripe falls into the pool and it becomes very green, and like it almost looks kind of like nuclear fallout or nuclear like waste.
I wouldn't have equated it to that, but that's interesting.
Yeah.
Also, I just wanted to point out we're back at a toy store.
Yes.
Just like we were in Silent Night, Deadly Night, looking at all the toys.
Yep.
Got 2 Barbie sets in the screen. This is the important type of filmmaking lore that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Getting to see old Barbie sets.
Did you see the scene where Stripe comes out and there's a Bugs Bunny toy? So I think they were referencing the Looney Tunes cartoon of Gremlins.
That's very interesting.
Yep.
Well, why don't you tell us more about that?
It's cultural impact. Sorry. The concept of Gremlins transitioned from military folklore to pop culture, thanks in part to the 1943 Warner Brothers cartoon featuring Bugs Bunny and a mischievous gremlin sabotaging his plane. Roald Dahl, who served as the Royal Air Force pilot during World War II, hopefully I pronounced that correctly.
That was very good. I thought that was very good.
Also popularized Gremlins with his children's book, The Gremlins, which was intended to be adapted into a Disney film. Although the project never materialized, Dahl's whimsical portrayal of these creatures helped bring them into the public consciousness. Interesting that the Royal Army is mentioned because there's a scene where Pete, who's played by Corey Feldman, is attacking the Gremlins with a slingshot. And if you look over his left shoulder, there's a picture of a plane, and it has the insignia of the Royal Air Force.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're a very observant human being.
I think I've watched it way too many times.
I know. I've seen it a lot too, but it's different when you're paying attention to it, actually trying to pick up on things.
Yeah.
Like I was sitting there taking notes, which is obviously not something I usually do when I watch Gremlins. And I noticed so much more than I normally would.
Yeah.
It was very interesting. When Gremlins hit theaters in 1984, it reimagined these creatures for a new generation. The movie's portrayal of gremlins as both terrifying and hilariously absurd cemented their place in pop culture. With their unprecedented antics and over-the-top personalities, the Gremlins embodied chaos in a way that felt both modern and timeless. And to me, when I watched this, again, this is so funny, but I really didn't watch this as a kid. I watched it as an adult, as I have with most horror movies.
Yeah.
Even horror comedies. I don't watch these. The Gremlins seem to represent children to me, untethered, unrestrained children. What I saw, even though they were smoking and drinking and doing inappropriate things, was that kids would relate to them because they were acting up.
Right.
They were swinging from the chandelier. I mean, were they trying to shoot people? Also, yes. How did these Gremlins know so much? And where did they get their little outfits from?
That's a very good point.
They came out knowing everything, maybe because they propagated from Gizmo, who'd already been watching television. So that knowledge somehow transferred when they were in their pupil stage. Is that what it was called?
Yeah.
It somehow transferred to the offspring. And where did they get their tiny outfits? They had like a whole theme going for each of them already. You know?
These are like things I didn't even consider about the movie, but those are very good points.
Right. Like, how did Stripe know so much? He knew to go to the YMCA for a pool of water. Now, I don't know if that was his intent, but happy accident.
Right.
And how did he know how to use a handgun?
Which also goes back to the other point when the gremlin shoots. Who's got the mask on at Kate?
Oh, yeah, he was bad.
The bullet hits a painting of a U.S. Army airplane.
My God. I was really trying to pay attention, and I did not notice that either.
Yep.
I was just like, oh, it's a gremlin with a face mask.
Well, I mean, it is, but if you freeze it and you look at it, you're like, oh, like there's another Easter egg laying there as well.
Wow. That's real journalism, folks, from The Wizard.
Yep.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a super fun film.
Yeah.
As an adult, I don't consider it a horror film. I would say there's two scenes that I would consider real horror in the beginning. There's when that teacher, Mr. Hansen,
Yep,
who was testing.
it was the first fatality.
He wasn't killed, I don't think. He was definitely unconscious. It's debatable. We'll say it's debatable whether he died or not, but I don't believe he was killed. He only had one syringe stuck in him.
In his butt,
which is clearly there to make kids giggle because the teacher got a syringe stuck in his butt. Yeah. But he really had it coming.
You think it was shaved? I guess it doesn't matter.
Oh, back to the waxing again. Yeah, right. When you're wearing pants in a film, take this if you're a future filmmaker. If someone's wearing pants in a film, there's really no need for ass waxing. And as a professional, I want you to know that. But if they're without pants, that's when you might want to spend a little bit extra of your budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I will say that the ass waxing comment I made for Silent Night, Deadly Night has gotten a lot of feedback. It's really struck a chord with people. You can get a lot of film reviews from people. There are people who are mainly professional malcontents, right? Who make it their whole personality to hate everything. Many times people have legitimate concerns about films.
Right.
Sometimes it's their whole personality to just talk about anything that anyone creates. That is not us. We're here for the important issues.
The hard-hitting issues, folks.
That's right. Like little gremlin costumes and where they get them.
Yeah.
And whether or not an actor should wax his ass for a particular scene.
Also, I wanted to talk a little bit about Chris Columbus, who was the writer, whose original script was a much more brutal story than the one that we ended up with.
I really wish that happened.
Yeah, I hope that somebody like makes this film because I definitely like to see it. He was saying that there were scenes where a McDonald's full of people were eaten by the Gremlins.
Oh, man.
Lynn Peltzer was eaten.
I would have loved to have seen that. Honestly, it's hard to go back when you're an adult and watch something like this because it's not, I don't feel that it's for me.
Right. It was like an intro to horror for kids.
Right. I really wish that I had been allowed to watch it. In the 80s, I probably would have been too young.
Yeah.
But, at least in the 90s, I wish I'd been able to see some of these movies to get it while I was still a kid.
Yep. Yeah. These were the Amblin films that were mentioned were an inspiration for Krampus. So like Gremlins. They also, didn't Spielberg, wasn't he involved with like Back to the Future as well? Was that like
Listen, I only know horror. I don't know anything else. So let's not go outside the bounds of my knowledge and specialization.
Back to hard-hitting journalism.
That's right, folks. You can only get it here. So while Gremlins are largely considered a myth, strange stories, unexplained mechanical failures, and sabotage stories persist. Some paranormal enthusiasts believe gremlin-like creatures might be responsible for modern incidents involving electronics and vehicles, citing odd patterns of failure or bizarre malfunctions. What a fun statement I put in there. Some experts believe. That's how you always just insert bullshit into a story. People have been saying. That's like all the people who've been demanding new music from Nancy Nightmare and the Wizard. People have been coming out in droves. I'm going to start just coming up with my own manipulative wag the dog statements about everything. Others argue that these gremlins are more metaphorical, representing humanity's tendency to blame external forces for internal mistakes. Ain't that the truth?
Yeah. Yeah.
Who wants to take responsibility for an internal mistake? Not me.
Right. And I feel like that's kind of the premise of the story, because at the end they tie it up with like, you're not ready for a Mogwai yet, which caused all of the chaos, nearly destroying the whole town and killing hundreds of people. To be
fair, they're very hard to care for creatures.
Yeah, especially that midnight rule.
Especially with no actual instructions. I don't blame the family for really not being able to handle it with such limited instructions.
Right. And they were like, and what's interesting is that Billy's dad, who's kind of got these wacky gadgets that don't really work well, he's like talking about like replacing the family pet, like the dog, to a Mogwai. And, Mogwais are incredibly destructive.
Okay, I'm going to just throw it out on the line here. I did not love the father.
Really?
Mr. Peltzer, get your shit together, sir. You have a family. Obviously, your inventions suck.
Wow.
I just was constantly irritated. Everybody's trying to use his terrible inventions to make him feel good about himself. Mr. Peltzer, clearly this is not the line of work for you. And now he's trying to exploit the Mogwai. Oh, this is my big chance. Now I can breed these little poor innocent creatures and sell them to every family. And he said the Peltzer pet.
Yeah.
Now, if that doesn't point to narcissism, I have no idea what does.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned this, because I think that was kind of Joe Dante's take on like American culture, which started really, the boom started in the 1950s, which you feel that throughout the movie. And the father, it was kind of like a spoof on how people are constantly looking for ways to make, lots of money. And at some cases at the expense of hurting a lot of people in the process, because either in this case, it's because of recklessness, because all he can see is, hey, my inventions are not working. Maybe I can start selling gizmos to kids.
Right. He didn't see Gizmo as an individual.
Yeah. And even the cops in the station not taking him seriously. And you see like little Gizmo like holding the American flag. He's like, oh, look, he's super patriotic. And clearly Gizmo looks kind of miserable, I
did love that scene.
Yeah.
With the little American flag.
Yeah. But I wonder if it's
Mike in Breaking Bad as one of the cops. How many cops did this man play in his career? I feel like all the time. Didn't he pop up in Miami Vice too? As a cop?
That I don't know.
I feel like I've seen him play a cop so many times. It's like, there he is again.
Mike was a former cop in Breaking Bad.
I know it. Yeah. Yeah, the cops never take anyone seriously in these movies until it's too late.
Yeah, and because they assume that he's a kid, he doesn't know what he's talking about, until that, phone call comes in, then he's like, holy crap.
Right.
This is for real.
But, everything worked out. Mrs. Deagle died.
Yeah.
They got rid of all the gremlins violently, I might add.
Yeah.
Really, there was no harm, no foul. A few people were injured.
Yeah.
I still would say I don't think Mr. Hansen died, but I would have to look into that more. He was certainly not moving.
Yeah, and then how about the one person who stuck their hand in the mailbox?
Oh, yeah, he definitely lost a few fingers.
Yeah, right. So I don't know if he died, but
no, maybe of infection. We don't know what kind of bacteria might be in the mouth of a gremlin.
Yeah, I think that was left in rather ambiguous.
Right.
Because it was a PG-13 movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, in conclusion, Gremlins gave us a chaotic holiday story about tiny monsters causing big problems. But the real lore of Gremlins reminds us of humanity's need to make sense of the unknown. Whether they're sabotaging machinery or turning Kingston Falls into a war zone, Gremlins represent the unpredictable forces in life that we can't always control.
Yep.
So, this holiday season, remember, don't get your Mogwai wet, keep it out of the light, and whatever you do, don't feed it after midnight, because you never know when a little mischief might turn into full-blown chaos.
Yep. The dragon, the gremlin.
I love the Gremlins. I actually was a little bit horrified. So I will say Mrs. Peltzer drew first blood. She drew first blood.
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah, she did. She was a badass.
Yeah, she was in what I would consider the second actual horror scene of the film. When she was home alone and she had the knife and then she grabbed a second knife.
Yep.
She really did a number on the Gremlins. She almost got all of them. The only one that survived the wrath of her was Stripe.
Yep.
He's the only one who escaped her wrath.
Yeah.
So, who's to say who the true villain in this film is?
Yeah. It's interesting. There's that one scene where Billy's showing or has like a drawing of him slaying a dragon with a sword. And it's kind of foreshadowing the scene where he kills the gremlin who's attacking his mom.
Yeah, that's true, huh?
But then ultimately he's not the hero of the movie.
Who is the hero of the movie?
Gizmo.
Well, he's just the cutest, most wonderful little creature that ever existed. Oh, I could just see the dollar signs.
Oh, yeah.
In Spielberg's eyes and everybody else's eyes when they saw the mock-up of Gizmo.
Oh, yeah.
They're like, you want Yoda? Here's spooky Yoda.
Yep.
We're just going to keep making these adorable little creatures.
That's a good point. I didn't even think about it. But yeah, he kind of looks like Yoda with the big ears.
Yeah. There's something about creatures with big eyes that are just adorable.
Yeah.
As soon as he put his little hands over the side of that box that he was transported in and poked his little head up, they must have just heard cha-ching, cha-ching.
Yeah, and the script went through numerous rewrites, and it was at the suggestion of Spielberg to separate Gizmo from Stripe as characters.
That was really smart. There were a couple of really smart things that they did. They didn't kill Barney.
Yep.
If they had killed that dog in this movie, it would have just been, even for adults, I couldn't handle seeing Barney get hurt.
Yeah, hence why he was gone for that
He went to Grandma's.
Weekend. Yeah, I went to Grandma's.
That was really smart. Making Gizmo so marketable and adorable was really smart. Separating him from Stripe, adding Pete the child, I thought was very calculated because they wanted the children in the audience to see Gizmo interacting with a child.
And relate to him, right.
And relate to him as being able to pet Gizmo and meet him.
Yeah, because I don't really think 20-year-olds would have been into Gremlins as much as that demographic between 12 to, I don't know, maybe 17 or so.
I have another point. Can we talk about the unfair representation of cat ladies in media and how that was in this film? Mrs. Deagle was absolute pure evil.
Yeah.
She wanted Barney dead. She threatened to slowly torture and kill him.
Yeah. She also didn't care about the people who were struggling financially during the Christmas season.
Do you like how I immediately went only towards the dog and was like, she wanted to hurt the dog. Meanwhile, she wanted to hurt families, children. And I was like, yeah. But she threatened Barney's life.
Yeah. She's almost like an Ebenezer Scrooge.
Oh, she was horrible. A horrible person. Loved her cats, though. So every person has some redeeming quality, I suppose. But what I found interesting is when the gremlins showed up to her house, they were so cute. Come on, even the bad gremlins were cute. Christmas caroling, she thought that they were demons sent to drag her to hell. Did you notice that?
I did not notice that.
She said, and I wrote it down, "They've come for me. I'm not ready yet."
Oh, interesting.
So she looked at them and immediately thought they were demons sent to drag her to her rightful place in hell.
And they metaphorically could be considered demons, right? Because they were green, scaly.
Right. If you saw a gremlin running around, you might think it was a demon.
Red eyes.
Right.
Sharp teeth.
Yeah.
Sharp claws.
But this is over and over and over again. When you see a cat lady represented in media,
yep,
she's evil. You know,
I don't think not so much anymore these days.
Well, Harry Potter.
Right, but up until recently, because I think social media discovered how funny cats are.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope that's true. But I won't stand for it. As I said, I like most things, and I'm a pretty easy person to please when it comes to films. My God, one of my favorite movies is Slumber Party Massacre 2, okay? I'm not out here looking to tear things down.
Right.
But don't come at me with a representation of cat ladies that is not accurate.
Yeah. Yeah, down with the negative stereotype.
That's right. I love dogs, too. I would never hurt Barney, whose real name was Mushroom.
Yeah.
Because, Dan, you're getting the important information from our podcast.
No, but that's a good point. I didn't catch that part of the movie.
Well, you know, it's kind of sexist, too, because it's always cat ladies.
Yeah.
It's never cat men.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of cat men. I mean, you're also a dog.
Yeah, but I'm not trying to destroy the town.
Well, neither am I. I just want to be left alone. I don't want to hurt anybody.
Nope.
So, and my other favorite thing in this film, Kate, and how morbid she is. I have to say, unfortunately, I relate to this because I will be in a happy situation and, you know, be like, oh, did you know that they used to use that as a torture device in medieval England? Or tell people stories about my childhood that I think are perfectly innocuous and just watch as people's faces.
Well, I think that's what she was doing because she was explaining to Billy how she came to find out that there was no such thing as Santa Claus.
She said, now I have another reason to hate Christmas. So yeah, they're in the thick of things and they're fighting gremlins, and Kate starts bringing up basically how her father died in a chimney on Christmas.
I'm sorry, I know I shouldn't laugh, but it's just so ridiculous.
Funny. And it had to have been intended to be funny because this was a horror comedy.
Right.
That's a strong theme for children, though.
Yeah. But I mean, that's a really good point.
Her father, didn't he burn? Isn't he burned in there? Or did he suffocate?
I don't know.
Well, either one.
Yeah,
Merry Christmas, Kate.
I think if they had, that's right, because they turned on the fire and it started to smell. And that's how they realized that something funky was happening.
That's horrifying.
So, folks, this Christmas season, if you have any plans to dress up like Santa and go down the chimney, don't.
Remember Kate's father.
Yeah, Kate's father. Don't do that.
Yeah.
So if you've got children, don't do that.
Oh, and then she starts going on about how the suicide rate goes up during Christmas. She is just a bundle of joy. I really like Kate.
I guess we'll have to put a disclaimer, like trigger warning on that one.
Well, I mean, it's maybe true.
Yeah.
But as I've learned in life, just because things are true doesn't mean people want to hear them.
Yeah. This Christmas season, we got drones.
Yeah, I'm preoccupied. I haven't been sleeping well. I'm like, what are all these orbs? What are all these drones?
Aliens.
Are they gremlins?
Oh, gremlins.
Yeah. Oh, no, nothing's happening. It's mass hysteria, according to the government.
And gremlins.
And gremlins. I would believe gremlins before nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, we have, friends in New Jersey sending you video of these things.
Yep.
So it's kind of exciting, too.
Yeah. That's gremlins. Yeah.
Maybe it's about to hit the fan. Go time.
Yep. It's almost like it's that fear again in the 1950s of nuclear annihilation, right? Because there's like all talks about the potential for nuclear war. And then in Gremlins, the gremlins turn green after being, they go through that cocoon stage.
How you managed to just tie that back into the movie, I am very impressed.
Thank you.
This is your role, and a part of your role in my life is to just keep me from going completely off the deep end, and I appreciate that.
But it's interesting because they're watching Invasion of the Body Snatchers before the Gremlins eat after midnight, right? Because they pulled out the wire from the clock.
Smart Gremlin.
Yeah. And so they're watching Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which also features like a cocoon-like state for the creatures, and then in Gremlins as well.
Right.
Yep.
Very true. Well, this is an enjoyable holiday movie.
Yep, absolutely.
Even though it was released in June. They do this all the time, though. This has happened with other films before where there's a Christmas theme and they don't release it at Christmas.
Yeah, this is a really incredible movie. So much fun.
So much fun. And even more fun when you really try to pick out these little details.
Yeah.
Did it feel like a horror movie to me as an adult? No.
No.
But it felt a lot like watching E.T., maybe less tear-jerking.
With a horror slant.
E.T. is a tear-jerker. I can't watch that movie. Yeah. That's too much for my heart.
Yeah.
That's why I like horror.
Yeah.
Give me things being hacked to death and I'm happy.
Yeah. And, before we wrap things up, I definitely want to also mention the theme song, who was written by...
Jerry Goldsmith, who did a ton of music for Star Trek, which is how I know him.
Yep. But
he's done other things too, obviously, horror movies.
And I think that's something that horror movies don't do it that much anymore, where they like have music that goes with the film, like Friday the 13th, A Nightmare on Elm Street, and Gremlins. Has that, what is it called? The Gremlin rag, it's called.
Iconic song. Well, maybe it's a budget issue too.
Could be.
Jerry Goldsmith did not come cheap, I'm sure.
No.
Nor should he.
But I hope that's like a trend that comes back where music is a big part of the film. I'm not just saying that because we're musicians, but because we are hire us. But yeah, having a theme for the song that's specifically, not just like a song that's added to the track, but like specifically to that music. Like as soon as you hear it, you see the movie in your head.
Right. Yeah. I would love to write a theme like that for a horror movie.
Yeah, that's just so infectious.
I know. We did write Black Lagoon on the last album. That was kind of my attempt at writing a song for that movie.
Yeah.
If there's a new one coming out.
Yeah.
Call me, baby.
Yeah. Let us know if I haven't seen any modern movies recently in the last maybe 10 years that has music that goes specifically with the film.
And if there are, we're just not thinking of it right now. So put it in the comments.
Yeah, let us know.
Always let us know if we're wrong, too. If we say something that's insane, perfectly fine.
Well,
we're here for a conversation.
And hard-hitting journalism, folks.
And hard-hitting journalism, bringing you the facts.
Yeah, in a world full of misinformation, you can trust this information.
Come to Nancy Nightmare and the Wizard is your news source.
Yep.
So, with that, we hope you'll meet us again at the Midnight Gathering. Until next time,
stay spooky.